Hi, everybody. My name is Jessa Lux, and I'm the host of the Business Unusual interview series. And today I have the absolute privilege of speaking with Rohit Bhargava. Rohit is an expert in marketing and innovation and has an incredibly long list of accomplishments. He is a Wall Street Journal best-selling author of 6 business books. The most recent came out in January, and that was Non-Obvious Megatrends. It's an incredible book if you haven't read it, so I highly recommend that. Rohit also teaches classes at Georgetown University around marketing and storytelling and innovation. He is one of the most coveted keynote speakers in the world around topics like business trends and marketing. Rohit also spent 15 years as a marketing strategist for the renowned agencies Ogilvy and Leo Burnett, and now he's the founder of the Non-Obvious Company. Rohit, that is a lot, and I know you are incredibly busy.
That's way too much, probably.
It's
More
a
than anyone
lot.
needed.
I don't know how you have the time, but thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, you're welcome, Jessa.
So that was a bit of a long-winded intro. Would you mind elaborating a little bit on the work that you're doing right now?
Sure, though I'm not sure people need elaboration. I mean, after they heard the whole thing. I mean, basically, I'm the founder of a company called Non-Obvious Company, and the aim of this company is to try and help people see what nobody else sees, to be more open-minded, and to make connections between things in the world that maybe other people walk by and not even notice. And so we do that in a couple of different ways. You mentioned that I do a lot of talks, which have kind of been grounded right now because nobody's traveling and there's no events. I write books. We've got a guide series called the Non-Obvious Guides, which compete with the Dummies Guides, but are much more practical and much less bloated and useless. And we do virtual summits, and I know we're going to talk about that. So we do these events that are happening online. And we have a book awards program. And so there's all these little pieces of the non-obvious kind of mindset. And that's kind of what I try and spend a lot of time talking about, which is what does it mean to be somebody like this? And then how do you think in that way?
Totally. And I discovered you through your Non-Obvious Insights newsletter, which I read every week. And it's got such good insights. It's also a really enjoyable read. And it is one of very, very, very few newsletters that have made the cut in my inbox. And I so appreciate you doing the work. I know that's a lot of work to
Thank you.
curate that each week.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I talk a lot about this idea of curation, which I think has kind of become a buzzword right now. But the idea for me is exactly what a museum curator does, in the sense that they have thousands of artwork that they could show you, but they choose what to put on the walls and in the exhibits in order to tell a story. And for me, that's what I try and do with articles and stories every week. And I'm reading a lot of unusual sources, unusual, right? Uh, and part of the reason I do that is because I want to try and bring out some of these things that maybe people aren't seeing, because a lot of times we just see the same media and it's just this echo over and over of the same stuff. And we end up, not because we're bad people, but we end up becoming closed-minded because we just read the same things and we only listen to people who agree with us. And that's one of the big things that I'm trying to get people to break out of.
Totally. I think that, I found it incredibly valuable myself. And I know it's a big job. So if you aren't subscribed to Rohit's newsletter, I'll put that link in the description for this video so people can do that. And again, that's a weekly newsletter. So Rohit, this interview series is meant to help people navigate a world and a country that's very different and continuing to change. And being somebody who is on top of trends and has made a big part of your career tracking trends, I would love to learn from you a trend that you're seeing during this unusual time that is positively paying off for people or for companies.
Yeah, and I'm happy to do that. And I talk a lot about trends, and I spend a lot of time thinking about trends. To me, one of the things that's interesting about what I do is that the first thing people think is, oh, you're a trend guy, or you're like a trend woman, and therefore you have some sort of insight that nobody else has, and so we're just going to listen to you tell us what the trends are. And I spent a lot of time trying to teach people that that's not really how it works. Like what I've trained myself to do is the same thing that anybody can train themselves to do, which is see these patterns that are happening out in the world. And when you put those patterns together, you start to find what I call intersections between them. And that's what leads you to a trend. So for example, one of the trends that I wrote about in the book back in January, and this is, by the way, like releasing a book about trends in January, like 2 months before a pandemic, like that's already kind of crazy. But one of the trends that's really started to accelerate even more so now because of the world that we're in is a trend I called flux commerce. And what I like about this trend, flux commerce, is, and they all have kind of catchy names because I'm a marketing guy, but like flux commerce has two pieces to it. The first piece is the way we pay for stuff has been shifting. So instead of buying something, we subscribe to it. Instead of going to the store and getting the mattress, we order it and get it delivered to us all rolled up. There's that shift. And then the second side of flux commerce is that companies that used to be in one category are now moving to a different category. So Apple in technology started a credit card. Taco Bell opened up a hotel. Crayon made makeup. Like these are all examples of like companies that have been in one vertical, and it used to be just like this is your vertical and that's it. And now they're blending over to another one. So to me, what's beautiful about this trend is it indicates something that I think we all need to have right now, which is flexibility and adaptability. Because when everything changes and when everything goes to chaos and we don't know what to trust or what to look at, one of the responses that is natural for us to have is panic. And I believe that if we pay more attention to the stories that are out there and we pay more attention to what those connections are, then we can give ourselves more knowledge. And when you have more knowledge, you're less likely to panic, I think.
Totally. And that is one of the reasons I've found following you so helpful is having your finger on the pulse of current or future upcoming trends is so helpful for making informed business decisions. And even what you just described, like these companies are having flexibility and it's paying off for them in a positive way. And it can be a scary thing to do, but it's kind of the way of the world now. You have to adjust.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, anybody who's been in finances or in financial services, like the thing that anybody will tell you if they're looking at your portfolios, they'll say diversify. Like, don't put all of your money into one thing because if that one thing tanks, you're screwed. And with our careers, we don't tend to do the same thing. Like, we put all of our effort into being the great at one thing, and we forget that like if that one thing goes away or if that job goes away, like all of a sudden now we don't have anything else. And I think the world started to shift a little bit. I mean, more people are doing side hustles, more people are doing things where it's like this is my day job and this is my, you know, passion thing that I'm doing. And maybe it doesn't make much money, but like it's the thing that makes me happy. And to me, it's like a mindset about your career too, which is like, am I the sort of person that is doing multiple things so that if this thing goes away, I'm not dead? Not
Totally.
literally dead, by the way,
Yeah.
just career-wise dead.
Right. That is great advice. And we're kind of being forced into adopting it lately, but it's good to know, like, um, have your encouragement to kind of lean into those things and be open to diversifying. Because I think you're right. It's interesting that so
Yeah.
many people approach their finances in that way and not their career in that way or their
Yeah.
business.
Look, I mean, I had, as many people who are in my position were, I had a ton of revenue coming in from speaking gigs. So going and speaking in an event, a live event, and getting paid. And then overnight, that whole thing disappeared. And so there's a big revenue hit there. And one of the stories that I told to someone was like in the first month that I was home, I made $1,500. And the way I made $1,500 is I found all the old phones and stuff lying around the house and I sold them on eBay.
Oh my God.
Now that's not a job, right?
Yeah.
But it is income. And I think sometimes what we do is we focus on like, oh, I don't have a job or I can't, you know, so like there's no income. Like there's other things you can do to get income just to make like some money. Now, is that a huge amount of money? I don't know. For some people, maybe yes. For me, you know, not so much. But it's some money, and it's based on being willing to say, look, this is what I'm going to try and do to make money. And what I'm doing for work, I'm not as focused on like I got to charge for this or I got to charge for that. What I'm more focused on is, can I bring more people into this ecosystem of non-obvious? Can I help more people think a little bit differently in a time when they really need it? Because what I found in my career is the more insight you can give and the more helpful you can be for people in the moment when they really need it, uh, the more benefit comes for everybody kind of later on. They rise up, they do better. They come back to you and say, oh, you know what? We have this retreat. We need somebody to come and lead a workshop. We have this thing. We need somebody to come and speak. Or they just send a random email and say, look, you really helped me in this time. And this is a great story. And I think you should talk about this. Like, and they just become part of this community. And I think that's really powerful.
It's incredible. And I know that what you're saying is genuine. That's why you're talking to me right now. That's why months and months ago, I responded to your newsletter. You certainly don't remember this, but I responded and just said, this is great. I enjoy reading this so much. I did not expect you to ever see that email. And you sent me the nicest note back. And those things are so meaningful. And I can tell that you really live by that in your work, and I'm sure just in your life. And it is really cool. And I agree that it sets people apart and opens doors that are impossible to predict.
Yeah, it's I mean, I don't know if I was always like that, but I think that it definitely helped me to be more like that now that I have kids and I have two boys, because you really do realize that the way you're treating people and the way that you're behaving is what they're learning from. Now, they might listen to what I say, they probably don't, but they definitely see what I do.
It's so true. Um, so, shifting gears a little bit, one thing that I know you're interested in is humanity in business. And that's something that I'm really interested in. That's something that the company that I work for finds really important and kind of guides the business by. So, what I'm wondering from you is what advice do you have right now for exercising humanity as a person or as a professional? And is there anything non obvious?
I think that well, I mean, first of all, I think we should look at like why it doesn't exist, like in so many cases. Like, why don't we have it, right? I mean, we're all humans, we're all interacting with each other. Like, it should be natural. And I think that the reason why it's not is because people just don't care. And so it's really hard to be human and be empathetic when you just don't give a shit.
Mhm.
And the problem is that there's a lot of people in roles where they just don't care. And we hire people and we de-incentivize them to care. And so I think that one of the biggest effects of trying to change that is we have to be able to change the culture to create a culture where we care about the people that we're working with, and therefore they start caring about the people that they're interacting with. Because if you don't have that, like, it's really hard to create what you might call, I mean, I know it's trendy to call it like a human company, whatever that means, but like, it's really hard to do that if you don't have people who care.
Yes, I think it is rare. I've worked for a lot of companies, and the company that I work for now is the first one that really does put humans first, both internally and the partners that we work for, the community that we're in. And it's such a special thing. And it makes sense to me that that's where it has to start.
Yeah, I think that it is. A lot of people have this false choice where it's like, oh, this is my work colleague. Like, they're not my friends. They're just like the people that I work with. And the best work cultures, I think people are friends. And I think that we shouldn't shy away from that. I mean, some of the greatest friends I've had have been work colleagues who have also been friends. And guess what? We did kick ass work. Uh, Maybe not because we were friends, but it definitely helped that we liked each other.
Yeah, I love that. Um, so, my next question for you is about I was thinking about being a student of yours at Georgetown, and I would have loved to have had that opportunity. If I was a student of yours and I was going into the world today, what advice would you have for me?
I think, well, first of all, I should admit that I'm an occasional professor, so I don't teach all the time. I kind of take time off, and then I teach a class, and then I take time off. So I'm very occasional when
Mhm.
it comes to that. And I think that for me, what is the biggest lesson, and I've taught two classes, by the way, like two different classes, by the way. Like, my first class that I taught was marketing strategy, so it was all about like global marketing and just kind of developing campaign strategy. The second class was public speaking and persuasion. So it was all about how to be persuasive. And in that second class, one of the big things that I would try and teach to people is to hone down exactly what they want to persuade someone of before they go in and start making the presentation. And one of the big challenges that I think a lot of people have is they start their task of persuasion with a PowerPoint presentation. And I'm not a PowerPoint hater. I love PowerPoint. PowerPoint is amazing, but people use it awfully.
Mhm.
And I think it's a user problem. It's not a tool problem. Like PowerPoint is awesome, but people use it really badly. And one of the ways they use it really badly is when they are architecting an argument, like they start with what they had from a previous PowerPoint, or they just start with like a PowerPoint template. And that is not a good way to start figuring out what you want to say. So instead, what I try and teach them is a technique of storyboarding, which is essentially what anybody who has done a film or in Hollywood, like what they do, which is scenes. And they use post-it notes, and I'm big on post-it notes, and there's like photos of me out there kind of covered
I
head
love
to
them.
toe in post-it notes, which are funny. But the reason why I like post-it notes is you can put different scenes on something, and then you can move them around based on how you want to architect what you're trying to say. And it's a much more useful way of figuring out this is what I want to accomplish, whether it's a presentation you're doing or a job interview or like whatever. To at least know what you want to say can help you be much more articulate and persuasive. And so to me, like that was the first thing to try and teach somebody when they're doing public speaking. Yeah, sure, you got to focus on your breathing and you got to like, project and have presence and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, if you have all of those things, but what you're saying stinks, it doesn't really help you.
Yeah, that is really interesting, and I feel like it's a hard thing to master storytelling well. Um,
Well, I mean, yes and no. It's a hard thing to translate to the business environment. But in our lives, we tell stories all the time, and we're generally good at it. And the problem is that there's like this wall in our brain that says, like, if I'm telling a story, like, here's what I did on vacation, right? And you're getting together with your friends, and you're when we can eventually do that, and like you're hanging out and you're talking about your latest trip, like you're telling a story and you're into it and they're into it, and it's great as long as you don't sit there showing them a slideshow, right? It's great, everybody likes it. But when it comes to business, like all of a sudden we don't talk that way. We use this weird language. We use idiotic words. We turn into lawyers. Like, and that doesn't work, because guess what? That person who was enjoying the story before over a beer is the same person who's hating the PowerPoint presentation because you're not delivering it in that way that is engaging.
Totally. I love that advice. And it is really interesting how prevalent it is to shift gears so much when your audience is, I mean, the same. They're humans who want to be entertained and want to like the people that they're talking to.
Yeah, I think that what people think is, if I'm going to tell you a story, you won't see it as serious. And you can tell a story and still make it serious. Like, not serious in the sense of like everybody's going to die and it's like really somber, right? That's different. But like, you can be serious and you're telling the story and have a persuasive point to it. So you're not just about entertainment, right? It's not like you're telling a kid's story. It's not like you're reading Dr. Seuss to your boss. Nobody wants that. But you're trying to tell them like something in a way that will get them to remember it and persuade them. And I think that there's a lot of techniques from the world of storytelling that we already use as humans when we tell a story that we should bring into our business lives.
Totally. I love that. And I won't read Dr. Seuss to my boss. um, so, Rohit, I could ask you 1,000 more questions, but I've already gone over time. So let's end by talking about the summit that you're hosting tomorrow and who that's for and what it's about and how we can register.
Yeah, so the summit is the non-obvious virtual summit on the future of book marketing. And so it's easy to get to kind of all of the videos whenever, even after the summit. You can kind of watch the archive of many of the videos. Just register at nonobvious.com/bookmarketing. And really, it was my chance to speak to all of the people that I've learned from, both as an author myself, but also I founded a publishing company. So I'm a publisher as well. And all of the people that I got advice from, that I've really learned from, and everything that I kind of wish I knew before I wrote my first book. And now I've done multiple of them, and I, did the publishing company as well. This was my chance to share all of those insights. And so really the format of the summit is me kind of doing what you're doing, which is interviewing all of these people and just asking them what I want to know, and hoping that as the voice of my audience, I'll be asking them what my audience wants to know also, which is what any good interviewer does, right? And therefore these videos will have value. And so there's nearly 40 speakers, I think actually more than 40 now, and all of those will be live as part of this summit. So if you're interested in the world of book marketing, if you're trying to launch a product, I think anybody who's trying to do that will find value in this. If you're interested in publishing, if you aspire to write a book one day, or if you just want to listen to smart people talk about how a totally different industry works that's different from what you're working in, all of those would be reasons to try and join and check it out.
Amazing. Well, I'm registered. I will be tuning in for sure. And because this video will be up after the fact, that event is tomorrow, which is July 8th. But like you said, you'll be able to access some of those assets after the fact as well. So I'll put the links in the description so that people can access that easily. But that sounds really cool. And I checked out the speakers that you have lined up, and it's fascinating. What a great group.
Yeah, they're really they were all super kind to share their time with me, and it's one of the benefits of getting older. You start knowing more people, and you can call them in and say, hey, can you do this thing for me?
Totally. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to it. And I have enjoyed so much talking to you and learning from you the past 15 or 20 minutes, whatever I took. But you have so much to share, and I appreciate the work you're doing and appreciate that you were willing to spend the time with me today.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.